Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, Mr. Moohead. Joining me in a few minutes will be Bronk from England, who is just finishing up his dinner. And, you know, uh, before I even get into the things uh, I will eventually get to, the the previous shows regarding JB Bickerstaff and his the incompetent decision making would be the nicest way of putting it, has come to a crescendo. And after the loss to the Charlotte Hornets, which was a loss that they literally had to try to lose, it appeared. After the game, JB Bickerstaff called his players lazy. And basically, Max Strus said, we played like we didn't care. And that is about the extent of it. And people will sit there um, and say, why would the players not be excited about playing, yada yada yada. But then I got some info that you can put the pieces together however you want to put the pieces together. The thing earlier in the season is that the players really loved JB Bickerstaff. And I think that everybody knows that there are some shortcomings as far as strategic shortcomings from this coach, but he had his players' backs. It is no longer true. The players are thoroughly disenfranchised with JB Bickerstaff. Now, they're not going to come out to the press and tell you that, okay? But when the head coach says the players are lazy, something's going on. Players basically say, yeah, we didn't really play like we wanted to win or we even cared about the game. They really don't. So the first thing is the question that Ron Shane is asking: how many games till we get a new coach? It's a fair question under the circumstances, because my previous feelings that the team was behind JB 100% are no longer the case. It's done. JB Bickerstaff is done. It's just a matter of when, and that's what Ron's asking. All I can tell you is this: I know what I would do if I owned the Cleveland Cavaliers, but I don't. Dan Gilbert does, and God only knows what he might do. But so that you'd get an idea of where my head is at, I look at big pictures, and I think I'm qualified, not about basketball or NBA franchises, but about business. When I would go in and buy radio stations in a given market, I would give staff people an opportunity to show me what they had and what their attitudes were. And you'd be amazed at how many employees committed suicide and how many got on board. And it's interesting because probably the single greatest skill that you need to have when you're buying any business, and I don't mean like now in today's world where these mega corporations already own 535 businesses. I meant back in the day when there was real capitalism in America, and a guy like me would come into a town like Flint, Michigan, or Danville, Illinois, or Binghamton, New York, and would ply his trade. And the biggest thing, I mean, people say, well, was it programming the radio station? Well, that was important. Well, was it like selling advertising? Yes, that was very important. But the selling was more important, that you would sell concepts and ideas to the people who worked with you. And I don't use the expression worked for me, because that's like old man river, and we don't have any of that. I worked with people, they worked with me. And selling them on a vision, selling them on how you were going to accomplish that vision became very important. And what I discovered is that there were people who just were there because they were getting away with murder and they were getting a payday. and the stations were underperforming. And when they saw that somebody was in and paying attention to what they were and were not doing, they committed suicide and got the hell out of Dodge. And it was amazing how many instances that I didn't even have to get rid of people. They would do things that were so insufferably bad that I would just look at them and say, you give me no choice. And they go, yeah, I know. And they'd leave. And that was the end of it. So you'd get positive people in the building who bought into a vision. Hi, Bronk. The Cavaliers right now are at a real crossroads because the players no longer buy into JB Bickerstaff's vision. And the problem is we're heading into the playoffs. And anybody you hire that is new isn't really going to have an impact over what happens in the playoffs a couple weeks away. They're not going to be able to institute any great new systems or anything like that. The assistant coaches will be the ones who are in charge. But how many games till we get a new coach? If it were me, I would have fired JB Bickerstaff already.
Yeah,
not for the thrill of firing him.
Yeah, no, that I watched that fourth quarter. What was it? 2 nights ago, last night.
15 points to the fourth quarter, and Bickerstaff comes in after the game and says, the reason we lost is we didn't play defense.
No, you know what happened was the Cavs were up like with 7 minutes to go, and then he brings in Mobley and Allen, who obviously couldn't defend and couldn't give a shit. And the Hornets went on their big run where they scored like 20 points to the Cavs 3 or whatever it was.
But we had plenty of possessions within that frame that we were winning by bouncing back and forth 3 to 5 points ahead, and we couldn't run a play set.
No.
We couldn't get anybody open, and so we were running down the shot clock, turning the ball over, doing all kinds of things that just show a total lack of organization. And it's almost as if the team imploded intentionally.
Well, that's a bit strong, but there were people on the Cavs Facebook page, who, by the way, is sponsored by Betway, who were saying that the game was thrown and fixed, but those comments got deleted like within a half an hour.
Well, I don't. What I can tell you is they tried playing us, the Hornets, the last time by digging in.
Yeah.
And this time they just wanted to freelance it and get the game sped up. And they see teams playing zone against the Cavaliers going hot and cold. We started the game out hot, then we went completely cold. And they were able to stay in the game. And when we had the opportunity in the fourth quarter, when they were handing us the game on a silver platter, we wouldn't take it.
No.
And the substitution patterns are bad enough. But when the head coach after the game says his players are lazy, as the owner of a company, I would say, if my people are lazy, it's my fault.
It's your fault. Yeah, absolutely.
If they can get away with getting paid and not do anything, that's, maybe you can say, well, they're not giving their best effort. Well, no, they're not. But I'm not providing an environment that gives them reasons to want to do more. So
there's all sorts of reasons not to give your best effort, particularly when it's a physical game. There's plenty of reasons.
Well, I mean, you saw Darius Garland go down, twisting his ankle.
He did.
Grabbing his ankle on the baseline at the opposite end of the floor, and then slowly getting up and tying his shoes extra tight. And JB still didn't take him out of the game.
No.
And I'll tell you something else so that this won't be a surprise to people. If you were watching the Pelicans game, Darius Garland really turned his ankle badly. And I thought he was going to come out of the game right then and there. But he didn't. He continued on. And then the smaller tweak that happened against the Hornets just re-aggravated something to the point where he couldn't walk. But he remained on the floor for several possessions and got beaten on the defensive end of the floor and missed a couple of shots. He was obviously in discomfort. And then finally, JB takes him off the floor. But when he does, he doesn't replace him with a proper point guard. So we end up running plays that go nowhere. The
With
shot clock
Paris
runs
LeVert.
down. And
Yeah.
yet Karis LeVert just throws up prayers and none of
Great
them went
defense.
in. And and he's a career loser, Karis LeVert. He's played for
Correct.
every team that's gone into the dumper. And I've said this before. It's not that I have anything personally against Karis LeVert. I mean, he can score, but he's not a point guard. He's not a ball handler. He turns the ball over. He's sloppy, and his shot selection is bad because he's a low percentage shooter because he has low percentage shot tendencies, and it's that way his whole career.
He's really a playground player. I mean, he should be playing at Rooker Park or something. He's not like a team player of NBA sort of teammanship.
Well, he's never played on a winning team in his life, except for the Cavaliers. Yeah, except for the Cavs. And wherever he ends up next year, which will not be in Cleveland, I guarantee you, he'll be back on a losing team where he can put up as many shots as he wants.
Well, I was impressed with the Hornets. I had the Hornets announcers last night because they were the other night because they were the home team, and they were thrilled with the way they played and with the way they came back and the way they dominated the last couple minutes. They were absolutely beside themselves, and they got that Miller and the other guy that played like 40 minutes of that game. They got some good pieces. I mean, if Donovan Mitchell actually went to the Hornets, he'd elevate them, and they're just like one player away from having a decent team.
Well, the problem is Steve Clifford is not much of a head coach, and he outcoached JB Bickerstaff. So,
he did.
And,
Totally did.
And that will tell you everything you need to know about JB Bickerstaff. Radu is saying Garland is horrible in the fourth quarter of all games when it's close.
We tired.
I would be the first to admit that Darius Garland's had a bad year, but now I'm seeing this from a slightly different perspective, because if the players have just all turned on the head coach, nobody is mentally optimal. No. And you're wondering why these players haven't done more to build up their bodies, get stronger. Evan Mobley, why he isn't able to move people out of the paint when he has the ball and horse the ball up through people, why he is still too trimmed down and too non-muscular, why Darius Garland takes 6 weeks off after the end of last season. It's because you have a lousy coach. You have a lousy guy who just doesn't communicate well with his players. And maybe somebody thought at first that playing run and gun basketball was a great idea, but now all of a sudden, JB goes into preseason running these guys and running their wheels off by the time the All-Star game hit. And now they're all hurt. Strus is hurt. Mitchell is hurt. Garland is hurt. They're all hurt. And Mobley's just coming back from being hurt. Every single one of them. And it's lower extremity in every single instance. This guy has crippled his team. The players don't want him. They don't like him anymore. They don't want him. So if I'm the owner of the team, I fire him now. And the reason I fire him now is I figure that we're in no position to do anything in the playoffs this year because there's no real opportunity to change the basic approach, because you've got assistant coaches who are familiar with strategy that was being utilized, which is limited on the offensive side of the ball. JB is trying to win basketball games with defense in an era where things are much faster, much more athletic, and people score more points.
And he doesn't have the defensive people to play that strategy either. I mean, Mobley did nothing in that fourth quarter. He did fuck all. I mean,
but I think that I'm telling you, the reason is they didn't try, and they're sick of it, and they've just given up.
Yeah.
So my feeling is, at least if their voice is heard, they will feel better about things and give a better effort when they go down in the postseason. The real important thing is that you have to hire a quality coach next year.
Correct.
And, there are always candidates, but you want to get a top candidate because I would not feel comfortable at this point with what I know now that I would say, okay, let's just get rid of Darius Garland. I think that would be a mistake. Dan Gilbert came out and said, well, I'm confident that Donovan Mitchell is going to re-sign with the Cavaliers. That almost sounds like the kiss of death coming from,
Correct.
from Dan
Yeah.
Gilbert.
That means he's gone next week, you know?
Yeah, the thing is, you just don't know. You have to presume that he's going to stay, and you got a plan for that. And that means that Garland and Mitchell are your backcourt. You got a plan that Mobley is and Allen are your big men, and then you have the players that you have. Strus, I don't think Niang is in anywhere near the condition to be playing professional basketball, but you have discovered, Sam Merrill, who's had a good game, even though the previous few were not so good. And
can I digress slightly? The game prior, the one at the home game, the Cavs, that first quarter was absolutely diabolical. It was something like 15-15 with like 2 minutes left in the first quarter. And I go, why the fuck am I watching this? And then suddenly in the second quarter, these crazy 3-point shots that the Cavs put up actually went in. They had like missed everything. So they got like 30 points in the second quarter. And I thought, oh, I'll go to bed. They're going to win this game. And they ended up winning the game, but it was a lot closer than what it should have been. That was probably the worst quarter of basketball I think I've seen this year. That was really, really bad.
Well, I think that's an illustration that the team just gave up and they didn't want to play. And the previous one where they were lackluster and they just showed no energy, they just don't want to play for this guy anymore. And their agents are beckoning them not to because he's playing people too many minutes, too short a rotation. The front office went out and got him a group of players so that he could play 9-10 deep, and he's not using those people.
Yep.
So a new coach will take a look at CPJ and say, maybe we should have a real second string point guard so that our rotations make sense, that when Garland is off the floor, that we have another point guard to take his place, as opposed to asking Karis LeVert to be a point guard, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, he's really a small 3, LeVert. If you have to put him somewhere.
Well, you don't have to put him anywhere. I mean, the fact is, you could put him on another roster. That's where you can put him. I mean, he just doesn't fit.
I'm just sick of his crazy drives to the basket and then these like prayers that he throws up 3 feet and they roll out or rim off or bounce off the backboard or they.
Well, these 6'7" guys like Niang who aren't strong, what are they? They're tweeners. They're too slow, kind of like Niang. When I see him dribbling the ball, it makes me think of rec league basketball. He's not prepared to play. And I would sit his fat ass down and I would not play him again this year, except maybe in circumstances where teams want to go into a zone and you play him 8 or 10 minutes. He's not in condition to play more than that many minutes and give you a full effort. He's not able to play the defensive end of the floor. If you can get some quick open shots when teams zone you, then that would be it. 8 to 10 minutes max for that player. And, Max Strus has never played so many minutes in his life, and he's hurt. He wasn't hurt like this when he was playing in Miami, but this is what he has done to this team. I would fire him. I would have fired him already, and I would just elevate one of your top assistants, and I would sit down with the team, and I would say, help is on its way. We're going to get somebody in here who is a more seasoned and experienced coach strategically. And we're going to be asking a lot of you as well, just like we'll be asking a lot out of a head coach. And everybody has to rise to the occasion. And I'll say this about Dan Gilbert, and everybody knows he's not my favorite human being. But without going into all of that,
correct,
the more important thing is he'll go to the hip.
Oh yeah,
No
and he's won a
problem.
championship. He's got the credentials now.
Well,
Yeah.
and he goes to the pocket and he brings players in. They wanted to play 9-10 deep, and he opened the wallet and he got these guys who were 3-point shooters who could spread the floor. The fact that JB decided to go back to a 7-man, 8-man rotation is not Dan Gilbert's fault.
No.
This whole thing just hasn't made any sense whatsoever. So, in my world, he should have been fired already. He's going to be fired at the end of the year anyway. If he's not fired at the end of the year, then I think every fan should just turn their attentions and find a new team to cheer for, because there's no reason.
It's not going anywhere. Yeah.
But 2 years in a row of this, of being totally wiped out by the end of the season, I don't think there's any reason to even have to watch this anymore.
No.
So, it is what it is. But I think there's a way to keep people's spirits up. And believe me, I bought some things in my time, businesses that were not doing well, and we turned them around. The way we turned them around is we became a team, and we thought together, and we listened to one another. The coaches need to listen to the players, and the players need to listen to the coaches. It's that simple. It doesn't sound that hard, but when egos are involved, and JB knows he's going to get shit canned, so he's going to play this out his selfish way until the very end, and I would not let him do that and destroy people's careers with injuries. I would get rid of him. I would elevate whoever on the bench is your top assistant and move on. All right. So that's all I have to say. And it's been 21 minutes worth of the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right. I'm just going to mention one thing about the Guardians. That's that they won. But the A's are, to tell you how bad a place the A's are in, they don't even know where they're playing these days. They've moved so many fucking times, and they announced the attendance at 26,000.
No way.
And it was 13. But it turns out 13, and most of those fans
got in for free
outside the building. No,
outside.
They never went in.
They were probably just drinking in the concourse.
They protested. They were actively protesting that the team is going to be moved again, and this time far away. So the A's were terrible last year. They're terrible this year. If you're going to start out on the road in a major league season, this is the place you want to start.
I mean, they were playing in front of friends and family last night, and that was it. There was nobody at that game.
Yeah. Again, as far as the Guardians are concerned, it was nice to see some of the guys getting hits. I don't think Fry is going to continue hitting like a maniac, but I don't think that Freeman is the answer in center field. I think these are placeholder players in an organization that doesn't want to spend any money and is still keeping its players who are the more hopeful ones in the minor leagues. But Shane Bieber went through them like a hot knife through butter. That was nice to see that Bieber, and the way he did it, he did pick up a couple miles an hour on his fastball, which is good to see, which is what he was working on. But more importantly, he stated after the game that he's been working hard on his changeup. And I think for a guy like Bieber, where he is at his age right now, with the number of innings that he's thrown, you got to have secondary pitches, but you've got to have a wide range between your fastball and your changeup. And the problem that Bieber had when he lost velocity last year, and he really didn't have a great changeup, there wasn't enough difference in separation between those two pitches, and people would foul the ball off. He wasn't getting the swings and misses that you saw in yesterday's game. So, Logan Allen is not going to step up and be Shane Bieber, but the bottom line is that we're playing a team that is not very good. Stephen Vogt got his first win as a head
Yeah, and
coach.
that's important too. I mean, it's important
Sure.
to get a win the first week, first couple weeks. You know, get that monkey off your back, or get off the schneid, as Tony the Calf would say.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. The investment company that I'm running, no, I've been out of the of business for
buy low,
a
sell
long
high.
time. Yeah, very very simple concept, but you have to love what you're doing, and you have to be able to
You have to
transfer
care.
the enthusiasm that you have for what you're doing to the people who are working with you, and that is contagious just as surely as the negative vibes in the Cavaliers locker are contagious.
Yeah,
And the
viral vibes that go viral, whether they're positive or negative, and once they start, they don't stop until something hits a wall.
right.
Oh,
So that's what I say about the Guardians. Glad that they won. Glad for Stephen Vogt, and glad for Shane Bieber. Yeah, and this is going to make him very more appealing, so that the brass of the ownership of the Guardians will trade him, so they can get more meaningless players in their minor league
correct.
system. So as long as we're aware of what's going on there, as far
Yeah,
as
the Yankees will come calling, give us four of their shit prospects for.
absolutely,
How many times have they
we
done
fall
that?
we fall for that. Do you remember who was it? Was his name Andy Marte, the guy the Red Sox
Yeah, Andy
foisted on
Marte.
us?
Yep. And we traded the Yankees Craig Nettles and Chris Chambliss and got absolute bozos back from them.
Yeah. But yeah, it seems to be one of them was Rosendo Torres.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got
They,
screwed, glued, and
they
tattooed there.
were somebody needs to go back, look up Chris Chambliss and Craig Nettles, and
Yeah.
see the nonsense that we got back from them.
A can of beans, yeah. Now moving to the Cleveland Browns for a moment. The Cleveland Browns, I have nothing to report. It's all excitement because, it's getting close to the time that Deshaun Watson is going to throw, and I don't care about that right now. The story that intrigues me the most is the potential domed stadium in Brook
Oh
Park.
yeah.
And
I'm getting shit about that.
well, here's the thing that I don't understand. I'm seeing headlines saying this is bad for Browns fans, and it's like, no, I'll tell you what was bad for Browns fans was the league taking our team away and
That was
moving it
bad.
to Baltimore. That's what was bad for fans when
That
there
was
was
bad.
no football to cheer for at all. But let me tell you something about the comeback of the Cleveland Browns. The comeback of the Cleveland Browns was not funded very well by the NFL itself.
Not
We
at
had
all.
to go out on a limb just to get the team back. The fans did a great job to keep pressure on, but the league gave us a piece of shit. They sold us a lemon, and we got a bunch of players off the scrap heap from every roster. And we didn't get to choose anybody or anything, man. We just got leftovers that
Practice squads.
they
Yep.
they literally allowed teams to put men on a secondary roster in essence. So it's like, these are the ones that are available to the low life Browns franchise expansion team. So it was no wonder that Tim Couch was crying. He was playing with a bunch of people who didn't belong in the NFL.
We were all crying.
But
Yeah.
there's more to it than that.
Okay.
The reason the story about the domed stadium in Brook Park is even an active story is because, whatever you want to call it, First Energy Stadium or Cleveland Brown Stadium, whatever you wanted to
Factory of
call it,
sadness. Yeah.
over time. Yeah. That's a shit ballpark.
It's terrible inside. It
It was
absolutely
a
is.
shit ballpark for the beginning. The people who approved that design were morons.
Correct.
And that stadium never provided the Cleveland Browns with a warm home feeling. It dissipated noise, so that it was one of the least noisy. So the fans were less engaged in that stadium. And all I'm reading is, well, if you get a dome, it's going to take away that famous cold weather. If you need negative 14 degrees to stay close in games,
you're
then
a fucked up team.
then you're not any good.
Yeah, correct.
The bottom line here is that if you play in a dome and you're good, you win. If you play in a dome and you're bad, you lose.
Yeah.
And that's the way it works. And that's the way it's always worked. What the stadium is, domed or not domed, and I know that they're investigating not only a football stadium, but it was much like the Richfield Coliseum. They're looking for a venue that will be
Yep.
utilized, when it's not football season.
Yeah, like have Taylor Swift there or whoever you want to have,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Christopher Milton says, yeah, the Titans and the Panthers or whoever came in after the Browns did, they got treated royally
Like
by the
royalty,
NFL,
yes.
and they were in the fucking playoffs within like 2-3 years of
Yeah.
the Jaguars, the fucking Jaguars and the Titans.
Yeah, we got shit on. And so fans that are saying, well, they're taking it away from Cleveland. Let me tell you something else about Cleveland. A couple of decades ago, back when the Jacobs Field was built back in 94 or 95. Yeah.
94 was when it opened.
Right. And then the succession of games of sellouts.
Correct.
The renaissance that was bloomed in downtown Cleveland was not just that park, but the fact that there were other things that were happening in the downtown area. You had
Yep.
The rocket loans. Well, it wasn't back then, but
Yeah, the Coliseum next door, whatever you want to call it, Gundarena.
Gundarena. That's
And
right.
you had Playhouse Square all
That's
renovated,
right.
and you had
West Side
theaters,
Market.
West Side Market, and the flats were all renovated so that you can go out and get drunk after the game. And they had that concert venue that's on the river and all that shit.
Well, the
So
flats are dead. Okay.
flats
I
are
mean,
dead now.
let's. I mean, being a resident now again of Northeast Ohio, and I spent all last
You were there.
year.
You were there.
I was driving the whole area and looking at what has happened to the area. And there is a trend that's happening all over America. It's not just happening in Ohio. And that is the seeking out of getting away from inner city traffic out into more rural suburban areas. And just walking to the West Side Market, it's dilapidated. What once was this great foodie haven is now broken down and lame, and nobody would go there.
When I used to take the bus going past it in the early 80s, it was dilapidated then. Then it had a renaissance.
Yes.
Got rebuilt, and now it's going back to shit. So
That's
anything from like Ohio City to the flats over to the river was absolute dangerous as hell when I was there in the 80s. Got rebuilt, tarred up, fucking money was put into it, and now that money has gone away, and it's now everything's shit. Everything's shit again. So
well, I mean, yeah,
it's a cycle.
It is a cycle, quite literally. This is what we see as far as gentrification and regentrification of areas. Correct. People fleeing areas and coming back and inhabiting those places.
They flip the area over, buy low, sell high, then move out to some other place.
That's right.
Flip that area. Then the area that they were originally in when they first flipped has now gone back to shit again. So,
these are the times that we live in, and where we are right now is that, let's be honest, the Guardians are a lousy baseball team and they're a shitty franchise.
Yep.
But all the way back when that beautiful park, Jacobs Field, was built.
It is a beautiful park.
Magnificent park. It's just like Camden Yards was in Baltimore. It reinvigorated that downtown area. But you know what was more significant?
What?
The team that played in it was really good
and hit the ball.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, they scored runs. But actually, guys like Jim Thome and Albert Bell, and when we get Kenny Lofton in a trade from the Astros, these players were young. Carlos Baerga, these guys were young players that we're going to grow up before our very eyes, and they
probably
were really
the best
good.
One of the bunch was the trade was Fermin for Omar Vizquel.
That's right.
And Vizquel became an absolute fan favorite because all the chicks loved Omar, including my mom.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you find out about Omar, that's not so good. But be that as it may, yeah, the team was winning, but the park itself was magnificent.
And it
And
was worth going to and
it
comfortable.
really was. And it was the crown jewel of the reestablished and reinvigorated downtown area. Now, the downtown area, the bloom is way off the rose.
Yeah.
And now that stadium is still a wonderful stadium. That I still call it Jacobs Field because I don't want to call it Progressive anything.
Yeah.
It's still a wonderful park, but the team that plays in it doesn't draw any fans. Just
It's
like
30 years old, and
it was like
if
the
you
Muni with the same
exactly
number of fans going there that went to the Muni to watch the Indians when they were terrible in the
correct.
70s and 80s.
And the thing about Jacobs Field, or whatever you want to say, they had to tinker with it in the left field upper deck because those are so far away from home plate that you cannot hear the ball go off the bat way up there. So that's how they put in those little, honorary number 15 Bob Feller things and those little bars and all that shit because it is dreadful out there. But so now nobody uses that bit. So if you're going to go to Jacobs Field, always sit in the lower bowl because that is the best place to sit. You get a good feeling of the game. If you sit in the upper deck, you have to be in between the bases. Otherwise, there's no point in even going. It's terrible up in the upper reaches in the upper deck.
Well, and here's the deal. Everyone's saying this is not good for the fans, and the team will lose its identity, and there's nothing in Brook Park. And
Well, there
look,
is.
no, there's yeah. Well,
I'll tell you what. There's contaminated land everywhere. Now they're not being specific about where the Haslams have this plot of land, but
right.
there was tanks being made in that area during World War II. There was Ford engine plants there for a
Yep.
good 60, 70, 80 years. The decontamination in that whole general area has got to be pretty significant to try to reset. I don't know whether anybody's doing the process on that, but every time they get a buyer for that area, they pull out, and that's got to be the reason. So,
And Haslam might well be just using this as a playing card against the government. But the fact is that I would abandon that horrible stadium because that
correct,
horrible
it is a
stadium,
terrible stadium.
it has been nothing but, I mean, there is no excitement in that place.
It's
It is
cursed.
drab,
It is
dull,
cursed.
without excitement. And I mean, the just the structure itself is ugly, and it's a
Yeah.
behemoth, and it just doesn't have any character whatsoever. It's like generic stadium.
Oh God! You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like Riverfront and Three Rivers were in Cincinnati and Pittsburgh back in the '70s, and they were nice for like 2 years after they opened, but they went right into the toilet, and they ended up getting blown up, both of those, like
Right.
within 20 years,
Well, it's just
and
like
that's
the
what you have to
Ridgefield
clean them.
Coliseum. I
Yeah,
mean, when that opened, that was like, wow,
yeah.
somebody's
Then 4 years into that, that was a shithole. The only thing Richfield was good for was for white kids my age to go down there and get stoned out of bejesus and go watch Foghat and have people throwing up over the balcony to the lower bowl. That's what that was for.
well, I mean,
Yeah,
Ridgefield never developed. All right. And here's my last point about this is business goes where business grows.
correct.
And if you have something leaving a downtown area, merchants aren't going to continue paying the rents they're paying when the reasons like restaurants and bars, they're not going to pay what they're paying, knowing full well that the biggest draw in town would be moving out. The business will follow the football team because the
Well,
Cleveland Browns have been and always will be the most popular sports franchise in Cleveland.
I think the thing about Brown Stadium that's also unique to other places is that to park at Brown Stadium, you gotta park in the downtown area and spend like whatever it is now. I don't know, $20 to $50. You have to park in one of those parking lots and walk 15, 20 minutes to get to the stadium. And the Haslams, if they get this land out in Brook Park, they can control the parking there and then
Sure.
make all that fucking money from people parking their cars, and it'd be so easy just to turn off at Berea Road and 237 and 480 right there, and it'd be really convenient to drive in, drive out. So other businesses, you're not going to want to stay in that area. If you're going to a Browns game, are you going to want to pop down and go to some restaurant that's like a 10-minute walk from the stadium in Brook Park? But in Cleveland, you had to walk by these restaurants after the game because that's where your car was parked. I don't know. I think it's a big play by the Haslams to get all the parking money as well if they go to Brook Park.
But look, I mean, the fans shouldn't worry about this. It's whatever it's going to be. If it's a moneymaker for Jimmy Haslam and he's happy, then you're going to keep your football team. So shut the fuck up. And I'm really tired of the fans complaining about this and that and everything. It's like, do you want to win? Do you want to draw fans? Do you want to maintain interest in the franchise?
Yeah.
Because we're winning instead of arguing about whether this player should be on the team or that player should be on the team, then you should be hoping that they invest money, just like Dan Gilbert has invested money through the years with the Cavaliers. That money invested may eventually mean deep playoff runs or a Super Bowl. That's all you should care about. You're paying the freight already to watch these football games. And Jimmy Haslam is the guy who's going to make the money off this, not you. So shut the fuck up. All right. So
okay.
No, I'm being serious.
Okay, I'll shut the fuck up.
No, I mean, I'm tired of hearing the complaints. Here's the deal. And Brook Park is, well,
Brook Park.
Look at what it's surrounded by. And what I can tell you about where I live and what has happened to the east of me is flight from Akron, flight from Barberton, beginning flight from Norton. I mean, people getting the hell out. And then from deeper east in the inner city, where people who were forced out of Cleveland during the last renaissance of gentrification, those hard luck people and hard scrabble folks found their way into Akron. And so people's like, I can't keep my family here. This is horseshit. I'm going to move to the country. Fuck that. It's all going west, folks. I mean, if you want to invest in land out west. I can tell you, in the area that I live in, and I don't discuss where I live, but in the area that I live in, there is so much property that is for sale. And you know who's selling that property?
Tell me.
Farmers who can't make money anymore farming.
Correct.
So this is the way they're going to keep their families fed and keep them alive and moving forward. It's the end of the road for farmers. They've got to sell their land to the building interests, and these are national home builders, and they're all over the place. All you have to do, I will name some areas, because Brook Park, I mean, you've got Middleburg Heights, you've got Berea, all right, but you've got Strongsville south of there. You have Broadview Heights, North Royalton, and Strongsville. All right.
Yep.
And these
I'm
areas,
well familiar with that.
Proper. If the Brown Stadium were to end up being built in Brook Park, and I'm not saying it is, because I'm not giving financial advice here, but the affordability of homes in Strongsville in that area is going to be harder to come by. The prices are going to go up. What I can tell you is this: you start going south. All right. And then you start looking at Medina.
Medina used to be a tiny town back in the 80s.
Not anymore.
Now it's fucking, 40,000 people? It's crazy.
I can tell you the areas that have grown. Medina has grown. Yep. And if you want to see some of the nicest homes, go to Sharon Center, Ohio. And you're going, where the hell is Sharon Center? Well, it's when you're heading out when you go through Copley and you go
Yeah, it's
straight
sort of
west,
Brandywine and
right,
down that area.
straight out west, you go right through Sharon Center, and you keep going and you hit Medina.
Yeah.
Then you drop down and you have little place like River Styx, Ohio,
Yep.
and babe, I love you. Now, and so you've
That's
got that. What else is growing? Wadsworth has grown.
Wadsworth. Wow.
Wadsworth is something that, I mean, what in the hell? But people, it's like there's more businesses that have opened up in Wadsworth because things to the east of them have gone bye-bye.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
that's
everyone's going to I-71, leaving I-77, going to I-71. Medina, I just looked up 26,000 people in Medina in the 2020 census, and that is crazy from what I used to remember that area being.
that's right.
There was like fuck all people there.
Look,
Um,
look at the prices homes are selling for in the greater Medina area, and they're greater than the areas that homes are selling in the suburbs of Akron and Cleveland to the
yeah,
north, and to the south of Cleveland and to the north of Akron. It,
correct.
there is no more industrial wealth from the Merriman Valley outside of Akron. There is no more of those
There's
old
no,
money mansions. They're just becoming dilapidated over time.
yeah, there's no Goodyear, there's no
That's
Cyberlings.
right.
Yeah,
What there is Creston and
yeah,
and Seville,
yeah.
and you're going out into an area toward Rittman,
Yeah,
and
you're
then
on 303. You're driving along 303
yeah,
out there.
and so take a look. I mean, if you don't believe me, believe your eyes. Look at the housing that is priced in Seville and around Creston and in these
Wow.
areas that are completely undeveloped areas. You'll be shocked. And you can continue on.
That was
I
just
mean,
Field when I was
coming
there.
down from Wadsworth, there's Doylestown, and there's Easton, and there's
Yeah.
Marshallville. And these areas were farm areas.
Oh, yeah, corn.
Not anymore. Just
Crazy.
drive through there and just take a look at the for sale signs on property. You will be amazed at how many people and where are they coming from. I still have contacts in Canton. What used to be the nicest area of Canton was North Canton. People have had enough. People have had enough of North Canton. People are moving west. More and this comes directly from the realty people I was dealing with when I bought my home. People are moving west into these farm areas,
Yep.
so that their families could be safe because the wrong elements are moving in and crime is finding them and they don't want to be found that way. So they're moving west. It's just that simple. And go west, life is peaceful there. And people just want good schools. That's what they want. And you go to the west and you're in Wayne County, and
Yep.
and that's like the northern tip of Wayne County. You go south, west of there, and it's like Amish country.
Yep.
And
And then you go south of there, then you get proper hillbillies.
well,
I mean, the
Amish
last time I
people
was
will be gentrified out of their land
Yeah.
because it's happened. It
Correct.
already has happened in Hartville.
Wow.
All right. Don't believe me. If you just drive, when I was young, Hartville was all Amish.
Yep.
The Hartville kitchen was owned by a bunch of Amish people, not anymore,
Wow.
but it's still a very popular place, especially if you want to get Joe Flacco's autograph. The Hartville kitchen, and that's the most popular restaurant in Hartville. But you take a look at the houses there, and it's become a suburban area.
Wow.
And who would
That's
have expected?
crazy.
Yeah, who would have expected that? And the Amish sold their land exactly like the farmers are doing right now out west of all of this mess in Akron. So the same thing is happening, and the Amish will be eventually gentrified out of their areas. And what
Wow.
builds this value into the Western movement of the state is if a stadium gets built out there,
God, yeah. Oh
that
yeah, it'd be
whole area, do
easy.
you know that if you lived in Medina,
You could get to the Brown Stadium in about 15 minutes, if that.
yeah, yeah, I mean, you
If
go
that.
straight up 71,
You're there. You're there. You'd be
you're
there.
done. I mean,
Yep.
so
Oh yeah, it's great for all the can I say white people that live on the southwest side
right.
from Strongsville, Medina, what and even people West Lake Rocky River, they just shoot down the Berea Freeway and there they are. Everyone and it's great for the Browns too. All the players live in that little gated community in Berea, where a lot of them do, where they have it by the facility. If they're in Brook Park, that's like they could almost walk to the fucking stadium from there.
Yeah.
You know?
So I mean, everything that I mean, take a look at Summit Mall. It's old. The
Oh
anchor
god,
stores are gone.
gone.
And
Everybody's dead.
it's like, but the more west you go of the Summit Mall, that's where at least the more thriving businesses are. Everything is moved out toward the interstates.
Towards
That's
71.
where it's going. So don't bitch, Cleveland fans. You want your team to be successful financially so that it stays, so that you're not the Oakland A's fans and find yourself 13,000 of you standing out in a parking lot protesting. We've
Yeah.
already been there. You don't want
Yeah.
that. So I'm done with what I have to say today, but you better hope that Cleveland Brown Stadium, as it is now, gets left behind in the near future and
Yeah.
that something takes its place
Well,
that's going to move this franchise forward.
that land should be cleared and that made into beach lakefront beach parkland
Lots of things up
area.
there, sure.
That's what should happen to that whole bit of reclaimed land.
So,
That's what I would do. And the other thing about the Brook Park Stadium is where exactly is it going to be? Because if it's
hmm.
anywhere near the flight path of Hopkins,
Yeah, well, I
that's
mean,
going to fuck up some concerts. But yeah, the way Hopkins works is that you fly in from the lake into Hopkins.
right.
So you're flying south, you turn around on the lake and you fly around the downtown, you go in. So I don't think that would actually be a problem unless the winds, change, from a different way. But there's only like one runway they can use anyway. So they
While
gotta
we're
go the
while we're
way they
talking
go.
about flying, I am going to be returning with Rocks to Ohio
Woo!
April the 14th. So
Ooh.
we're going to be spending the spring and the summer and the fall in Ohio, and
So
you
you're gonna
might
miss the eclipse, which is probably a good idea.
you might
Yeah.
catch me up there. I mean, yeah, there's going to come a point where I might just go out and do a show from someplace for the fun of it, and I'm getting to know more and more people out in the area, and it's fun. And I'll be all over the place gallivanting around. Before I get out of here, there was one other thing I wanted to mention: that Jadeveon Clowney finally landed, and the Panthers.
Back to the
That'll
Panthers.
That'll
Wasn't
tell
he
you
there
everything you
already?
need to know about Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah.
This guy is always in a perpetual rut. All right.
Well, he's only motivated by what his next paycheck's gonna be, and that
Well,
is it.
this is and this is what Clowney said. I tell people all the time, if I play 16, 17 games, it's going to look like a Pro Bowl season. That's all I got to do. All right. But this is the stupidity of it all. It's just another prove it contract.
Yeah.
And the reason is because his attitude isn't that good. And
He's
if he really was that good a player, uh,
he would have stuck.
he would have stuck. That's absolutely right.
He would have
And
stuck, and he doesn't.
he played last year for a $2.5 million deal for the Ravens. They didn't want him back.
No. No. Yeah, he probably hurt their culture, such as it is. So
And what he said was, like I said, the lady with the pig gets the last say. So I never really got to respond to that or say anything about what was said. I just swallowed that, went to work, and got back to grinding and working out. In other words, I was never happy with the money. So,
Oh, can I make a really quick comment? The
sure.
last show I talked about the Welsh rugby guy. The Kansas City Chiefs have signed him. So,
Oh,
whether
okay.
whether he makes their practice squad or the 53 or whatever, we will see. But the kid's good. All he has to do is learn the game because he's got the skills. So, and he wants to play, which is a hell of a lot different from 75% of the people that he'll be playing with. So, I mean, the Chiefs always saw something in him, and they don't tend to get bust. So let's see how he does, and he'll be in a good environment. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's I have nothing against Jadeveon Clowney, but the road usually ends with the Panthers. That's been the history of that whole thing. So that's that. I want to thank everybody for tuning in,
it's the
and
Easter Moose. Happy Easter or
y-
Happy Good Friday.
what's so good
Yeah,
about it?
yeah, yeah. It's all your people, all your people's fault anyway. Can I say that?
You just did. It's not a matter of whether you can or you can't. God, I swear to God, you just try to put somebody up for the night and you get into all kinds of trouble.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I appreciate everybody being here.
So when you
Cavaliers,
off the air, then are you like going to be off the air for a few days, or while you're moving, or
yeah, I'm not sure how
you
it's
don't
gonna
know?
play out, but I'll let everybody know. But
Yeah.
I will be there on Sunday the 14th, and we'll just I may not that day after do a show. I got to get myself settled in. I mean, with Topaz the Wolf is going to be traveling in a separate
No.
methodology, so that's kind of the deal. And
How's
uh,
everybody's health? Is everybody Topaz and Rocks and everybody's
everybody's
up for the
good.
journey? Everybody's up
Everybody's
for the journey.
ready to roll. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Cavaliers play tonight, of course, at home. And Donovan Mitchell was participating in the shoot around. Just another opportunity to put a target on his back so he can get injured again. Thanks,
Yeah.
everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. Back again on Monday on the flip side. Until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.